And we are recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Arsenal 3 podcast. It's Cam back again with another video. And we've got a new attendee, a first-timer for Doug Collins. So welcome, Doug, the Bees fans.
Everyone.
Say hello. We're getting into opposition territory today. So I want to do more of these videos where we get opposition fans on from teams who are about to play. And obviously Arsenal playing Brentford at the weekend. And what I want to do is, first thing, Doug, isn't it great to have the football back after the International Ball Fest? I don't know if you followed any of that.
God, are we going to talk about Gareth Southgate?
We can have a little bit.
I think he's a talented manager. And I mean that literally, genuinely mean that. And I'll tell you why.
You have been drinking. I saw you drinking earlier on.
I'll tell you why. For anyone to get a squad of players that good to play that bad takes talent. Right? You've got to hand it to him. I think you can drag somebody out of the pub and they could make that team play better than he does.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's so bad. I saw 20 minutes of who was the first game? Was it Malta?
Malta, yeah.
On Friday, I think. I saw the last 20 minutes of that, and it was as bad. It was as bad as you could imagine. I didn't even bother with the Macedonia game. I didn't even bother with it.
Do you know what I did?
I used to watch England all the time. Like, I was a big England fan. You know, we would go down the pub. It was a big deal, but that's just gone now. I mean, I'll watch England in the tournaments, of course, but it's just. It's just awful to watch. Really, really poor.
Yeah.
The annoying thing is, it's such a genuinely good squad that we've got. I think if we had a top manager, that team really should be pushing for winning the Euros, winning the World Cup. You know, doing a lot better than we've been doing.
Yeah, he's in the key moments. I feel like he's kind of let himself down and. He's had enough time there to build a pattern of play as well, but it just doesn't seem to be happening. But the whole international break, I mean, fans are just over it. No one looks forward to it.
No.
Everyone's just like, this thing sucks. And
everyone you speak to is like, oh God, it's the international break coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, and they just hope none of their players get injured. And so
well, that's another thing. I mean, I don't know what the Arsenal squad is like with injuries, but Brentford had 7 injuries. And when I say 7 injuries, I mean 7 players that could realistically start, 7 starters that are injured. And since this international break, Collins is now injured. So now we've got 8. And he was playing fantastically for us. He scored the winning goal 2 games ago for us against West Ham. Right. Centre back, he's fantastic with a ball at his feet. And now he's got a big boot on his foot. And we don't know how many weeks or even months he's going to be out for.
Right. So, yeah, I'd heard something about your record signing and a bit of bother.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. He's just starting to come good as well. I mean,
that's what happens, unfortunately. Arsenal fans can definitely relate to that. So I want to get into a first subject because so for anyone watching, me and Doug go back many years. We've known each other a very, very long time, and we also talked about football over that period of time. But you mentioned something to me the other day, which I didn't actually know, which was that Brentford were essentially nearly went out of business or nearly liquidated back in 2007. And I was wondering, how does a team go from, nearly being kaput to your established Premier League team now? I mean, what did they do? How did they change that round?
Well, it's a fairly long story. We've got to go back really to the late 90s. Ron Nodes took over the club in the late 90s. He spent a lot of money. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he took over. He took over as chairman stroke manager. So he kind of just come in to decided he wanted to do everything. He spent a lot of money, and we did win promotion from the old, well, I guess it's the League 3, so the old 4th tier, whatever it was called at that time.
Yeah.
It may well have been League 3 at that time. But anyway, we won the league, but he spent a lot of money doing it, which really put the club into a lot of peril financially. And then he turned around and he said, the only way really if Brentford can survive is if we sell the stadium, Griffin Park, for flat development. And then we're going to move Brentford to play in another ground somewhere. And the ground they come up with was Woking. So Brentford would have been playing their home games at Woking. So obviously the supporters weren't going to have any of this. So there were lots of protests. I myself went to a protest at Woking's ground. I can't remember the year. It would have been around like the early 2000s. And then basically what happened was Brentford supporters set up a trust called Bees United. And so, long story short, they ended up buying Ron Nodes. Well, they took control of the club from Ron Nodes. He still had financial interest in the club, but they had raised enough money to take control of the club from him. And that was in, I guess that was about 2003. Yeah, so I think I'm right in saying at that time, Brentford were the only club in the country to be run by its supporters. So that was about 2003. 2003/4 season was going horrendously for us. We were in the relegation zone, not going well at all. Looked like we'd get relegated. And we appointed Martin Allen as our manager in March. So we had 9 games left. We were in the relegation zone, not looking good. And Martin Allen was one of those old school managers that come in, and it was just the strength of his character that basically bolstered the team and bolstered the support as well. And we ended up staying up on the last day of the season. We beat Bournemouth 1-0, and that actually kept us up. Martin Allen then took us to the playoffs in the next 2 seasons, but there'd be no influx of money or no big signings or anything like that. It was still quite a desperate team and financially very desperate club. But it was just the strength of Martin Allen himself that took us to those heights. And he really saved the club from, in my opinion, from this. This isn't like an official thing, but you just get a sense that he saved the club from going out of business. If he hadn't come in, we almost certainly would have got relegated that season. And we probably never would have recovered from that. In 2006, so Martin Allen was still the manager, we had a cup run. We beat Sunderland in the 3rd round of the FA Cup. We were 1-0 down. DJ Campbell scored 2 goals for us as we won the game.
I remember him.
And then not long after that, we sold DJ Campbell to Sunderland for £500,000. And it's rumoured that, or strongly rumoured, that sale actually saved Brentford from going out of business. So that was in 2006. In 2007, so we're getting up to 2007. Basically, what happened was, so our manager now is a guy called Matthew Benham. So have you heard of Matthew Benham?
Not heard of him.
Okay, fine. So he's our now chairman. So he basically took control of the club, or took control of £3 million of our debt in 2007. So he sort of saved us from the financial brink in 2007. So we were about to go in 2007, and him coming in and doing that saved us from going out of business. And when Matthew Benham come in, that's when things really did start to change around. So a little bit of background on Matthew Benham, because he is really the catalyst that took us from 2007, the brink of disaster, really, through to where we are now. So he's a lifelong Brentford fan himself. He started his career as a physicist, but then he went into being a city trader, and he actually worked his way up, and he was the vice president of the Bank of America. But then he took a left field move into the gambling industry, and he set up a company called Smart Odds. And now what Smart Odds do is they sell statistics to professional gamblers, right? So he's made millions of pounds doing this. He also bought a company called Matchbook, which is like a traditional betting company. So he was into the gambling industry using algorithms and, God alone knows what. But anyway, his idea was that he wanted to transform a football club, and the idea, this is where the Moneyball thing comes into it. So his idea was, you buy an undervalued player, so somebody that's got value that you can see but that other people can't see. You buy them cheap, you develop them into the potential that they are, and then you sell them for a big profit. And then when you get that profit, you reinvest it in somebody else, and so on and so forth. And I haven't looked up the actual figure, to be honest with you, but at the moment, we've been doing that now since really, well, Matthew Benham took complete control in 2012. And we've been doing it. So we've been doing it properly since about 2012. And we're over £100 million in profit from working that way. So you start off small and you build up. And in a nutshell, that's why we are now where we are now. And it's down to Matthew Benham, his genius, because the modelling and the algorithms and the analytics that he uses are proprietary to him. It's not like he's taking data that's out there.
Footballscout.com or something.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's
got their own
that he's developed through his company, Smart Odds. And
yeah.
So in a nutshell, that's kind of where we're at. What is interesting, when he bought the club in 2012, 9 days later, he bought a plot of land near Kew Bridge in West London. And he said, I'm going to build a new stadium there. And everyone thought he was mental. And that is now where our new ground is.
Yeah, it's crazy to think there's a football ground there.
Yeah. Have you been to the new ground yourself?
I've driven past it where you can see like the G-Tech sign, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I was with a mutual friend of ours and driving and thinking, they can't, because it was Dow who's been on the channel before, and he was going, it's just coming up, it's up here on the right, just look out. I mean, this is impossible. There's no way there's a football ground there.
Yeah.
It's too urban.
It's a really odd shape. It's like a triangle shape as well, and it's got
and then I kind of saw like the outside of it and was like, oh shit, no, that he's right. It's obviously he was right, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is there.
It just shows, I mean, in my opinion, that just shows how what sort of vision he had. That in 2012, that he went and bought this land just because he knew that his we didn't know, but I guess that he believed that his vision was gonna work, and it has done.
So when did Thomas Frank come in?
Well, we had what's his chops? The guy that went to Villa, Smith. Dean Smith was our manager. His number 2 was Richard Kelly, and Matthew Benham approached Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank had been the Dutch under-18s manager, I believe, and then he was the manager at Malmo. Is it Malmo? Or no, Bromby. I think it was Bromby. But he had a falling out with the supporters, so he had left his job. Right? It's a weird story. I don't really understand it. Anyway, he went to Thomas Frank and he said to him, "Look, can you come to Brentford and you're going to be 3rd in command?" And Thomas Frank's like, sorry, are you mental? Like, I'm a Bromby manager. I've managed at international level. Why would I be 3rd in command? By that point, we were in the Championship. But anyway, he thought about it and he had a couple of interviews by all accounts. And in the end, he agreed to do it. So he was 3rd in command behind Richard Kelly, or Dean Smith, Richard Kelly, and then Thomas Frank. But what was interesting as supporters, you would see when we were in the Championship, we'd be doing okay. But then if a team started to come in, you'd start to see Dean Smith having a chat with Thomas Frank on the sidelines. And then Thomas Frank would be, and then things would change, and then we'd do really well. So the supporters started to pick up on that. And when Dean Smith left, there was a little period where we weren't sure if Thomas was going to be promoted, because he'd been brought in basically that when Dean Smith leaves, you will then take over. But we weren't really sure if that was going to happen. So there was a few days where we were being linked with all sorts of different managers. But then Matthew Benham announced that, Thomas Frank is going to take over. So he did. Kevin O'Connor became his assistant manager. And Kevin O'Connor, for anyone that doesn't know, who you probably won't, he's a Brentford legend on the pitch. So he's been a Brentford player his whole life since academy. He was I think he's played over 500 games for Brentford.
Oh, wow.
He was the club captain, and now he's assistant manager. And by all accounts, he's great at his job as well now as an assistant manager. So that's how we got Thomas Frank and how he got to be in that position that he's in. But if you compare Thomas Frank to Martin Allen, who I mentioned earlier. So Martin Allen was very much an old school manager. You could compare him in some respects, not a direct comparison, but to someone like Alec Ferguson or even Arsene Wenger. And what I mean by that is when they come in, it's just them, the strength of their personality.
I thought you were going to say Neil Warnock.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's a little bit of Neil Warnock in him. You're right, actually. You're right. I mean, this is what I'm getting at. It's like there's not like a structure at the club that they fit into. It's just them.
Yeah.
They choose the tactics. They choose who gets bought and gets sold and all that sort of stuff. Whereas nowadays, and I guess it's the same at a lot of clubs, but definitely at Brentford, there's actually a structure at the club. And Thomas Frank is just part of that structure. So there's been an evolution at Brentford, obviously, since the 2000s through to where we are today. But there's also been an evolution of the supporters. So I think when I was growing up, I mean, my dad took me to my first game when I was 3 years old. So I've been going to Brentford my whole life.
Yeah.
And for us, really, it was football was almost secondary. It was more of a social thing. You know, you'd go with your mates, you'd go to the away games and stuff. But as we've gone through the leagues, I mean, when we first started to play a different style of football, because one of Matthew Benham's things is, apart from the buying rough diamonds and selling them at a profit, the other thing is that they look at analytics about the best styles of football to play based on who the next opponents are. And so what we started to do was things like the goalkeeper would start to play the ball on the floor from goal kicks. And as Brentford supporters, we were used to the ball being launched into half of the pitch, right? So initially, you'd get howls of derision from the terraces saying, "Get rid of it, get it long," and all that, right?
Launch it.
Launch it, get it in the mixer and all that stuff. So it took a while for Brentford fans to evolve and actually see what was happening with the style of play on the pitch. And the same things happened with the sale of players. So when we started to sell players, it was like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. We're now going to, like when we sold Jota and all different players, we're going to go back to where we came from. But what we've actually realised is when Brentford sell a player, they've already got a player in mind who they're going to bring in to replace them. And they have now done that consistently for the past sort of 10 years, really. So now when we lose players, like when we lost, talking to an Arsenal fan, a really good example is when we lost Raya. So when we lost Raya to Arsenal, Raya's been brilliant for us. He was absolutely fantastic. But when he first come from Blackburn, he was quite error prone, and he's grown into the team. But then he was fantastic, ball at his feet. He was a brilliant goalkeeper. But when we heard that he was going to go to Arsenal, there was no slagging him off. There was no, oh, fuck him or any of that. It was, everyone was just happy that he was going to go to a bigger club.
Yeah.
And we were happy, A, for him, but B, and I guess more importantly, because we trust the process. Because we know whatever's going to come in is going to be just as good. And actually, we've signed Mark Flecken, who's the Dutch national goalkeeper, and he's been fantastic. He's had a couple of dodgy moments, but goalkeepers do, and obviously when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's highlighted more than other positions. But by and large, he looks fantastic. So, and we're the same with all. So when we get on to talk about Ivan Toney a bit later, it'll be the same thing. Like obviously we don't want him to go; we'd rather keep him, but we're not like angry or upset, or we just understand now that that's part of the process. So as Brentford supporters, I feel like we've evolved along with the team over the past sort of 20 years or so.
It's interesting how you kind of describe how like a man has come in and implemented a kind of recruitment system on the playing side of things, but also on the coaching side of things as well. And is very good at picking the right people for the right roles, and has created a process and stuck to it, and has had success with it. Because you look at certain clubs and you kind of go, like, what are they doing? Like, for example, a lot of clubs, if they'd lost their manager, like you lost Dean Smith, a lot of owners will then go, okay, let's look at someone like Frank Lampard or Steven Gerrard, you know, a top player that's recently retired, looking to get into the game, and they'll kind of get blinded by their badges and their trophies or whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of having the kind of courage of their convictions to go, no, I've already got someone on the inside here who I know inside and out, and I know understands how I work, And so I'm gonna do. It's might not be the fashionable thing to do, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of clubs can learn from that. I mean, Brighton. It sounds like Brighton have a similar process.
Well, interestingly, if I can just say this, Tony Bloom, who's the Brighton chairman, him and Matthew Benham were business partners.
When you were telling me about Benham's background, it was like, oh, that sounds like
it's exactly the same. Yeah, so they were business partners. They had some sort of personal falling out. Nobody really knows what happened. But what did happen that we do know about is that when they fell out in their business company, Bloom bought Brighton, and then not long after, Benham bought Brentford. And at the time, Brighton were League One and Brentford were League Two, I think. And then you can see the trajectory of both clubs from there. You know, we've just so we're very, very similar in that respect, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you mentioned him, so we may as well move on to him, and that is Ivan Toney. The Ivan Toney situation. Will he stay?
Yeah.
Will he stay? Will he go? I've heard rumours of a new contract.
Yeah. So,
how long's he got left? Do you know?
26, I think it runs out. So a year and a bit.
A year and a bit. Okay, then. When you found out, when the ban came into effect, when they announced it, what was your reaction at the time?
Well, it was I mean, just think to yourself how you would feel if your star player had been caught gambling. So it's one of those things. I mean, I'll tell you what really did make a difference was the Paul Merson documentary.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that about gambling?
Yeah, I've read his book as well. His book is really insightful.
The documentary that I think it was on the BBC was I watched that and I found it extraordinary, and it opened my eyes to how much of a disease gambling can be, how much of an addiction it can be. I mean, a couple of things from that documentary that sprung out to me were, one, when they put him in an MRI and they showed him pictures of trees and beaches and nothing really happened. And then they showed him a picture of a roulette wheel and his brain lit up, right? Which, I mean, he's got no control over that. It just happened, right? And then something he said after that was, after the MRI scan on this documentary, he said, if you're addicted to a substance like drugs or alcohol, if you don't take that substance, it's not in your body. Whereas if you're addicted to gambling, it's something that's it's already in you. You can't not have it. You can't just not take it. It's always in there. So he said it's like a daily constant battle to try and keep that suppressed. So anyway, the point of talking about that is, when I heard about Ivan Toney's gambling thing, I think a lot of us thought, well, you know, it sounds like he's got an illness. And actually, did you see the Stephen Bartlett interview that he did?
I did, and I've got to say, he didn't. It seemed he came across to me as someone who felt like they were in control of their potential problem.
100%.
He wasn't like, it's out of control and I don't know what I'm doing.
What I got from it was that he's in denial. He hasn't acknowledged to himself that he's got.
That's kind of what I thought. That's what I thought.
So in answer to your question, how did we feel? Well, obviously we're disappointed because he's our star player, and he's very, very. I mean, he's very, very, very good footballer. He's fantastic. He's Brentford's best ever player by a country mile, right? So we're disappointed
linked with him as well.
Sorry.
So Arsenal are being linked with him quite heavily as well. And
I'm not surprised. I mean, he's good enough to play for anybody. Like literally, you know, he's good enough to play for anyone. So I mean, I think that would be my answer, is that we're disappointed because we know that we're going to lose him for a period of time, and we feel bad about the fact that he's got this problem. I mean, you know, there are lots and lots of charges against him, so it's not like he's had 10 bets with a mate. No. You know, this is a systemic thing. So
and planned, and not really impulsive either by the looks of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think. I mean, look, Arsenal have been linked with him. Chelsea have been linked with him. I'm kind of the questions I have are not really to do with his talent. It's not a talent thing. It's just about, you know, has he has he changed his ways? Because you're going to have to spend kind of 80 million plus probably to get him.
Well, can I just butt in? Sorry to butt in very quickly. The new contract that you've just alluded to, so that's what that's going to be about.
Yeah.
He's going to sign a new contract with a buyout clause. So we're thinking 85 million will be about the starting price for him.
Yeah. Well, to try and do a deal in January. I mean, look, like you said, it's a starting price, isn't it? Because it's January, it's a terrible month to buy players. But there aren't many players of his profile with his level of success in the Premier League that are available.
Yeah.
But the downside is obviously if you're a club and you go and spend that money on him, and then he gets caught gambling again, like Toney, for example, at Newcastle, you're hosed. It is a risk, and I don't see. I don't think Arsenal are typically quite risk averse, and I don't see them taking that risk. And I don't see Arteta. The kind of players that Arteta signed are kind of like, I describe them as, they're kind of like Disney princes. They're clean cut. They're not. There's no real drama around them.
Who signs the players at Arsenal?
Well, Edu signs the players, but Mikel will make suggestions on it, and we won't sign anyone that Arteta doesn't want us to sign.
Right.
Okay. But we have like our own in-house stats company as well.
Yeah.
And so they'll have a profile of everyone that they want to potentially look at or whatever. Personally, I think if anywhere he's going to end up at Chelsea, if he does end up anywhere, I think it will be Chelsea. I don't think it will be Arsenal. And would he go to Chelsea? I don't know.
I think if you asked Ivan who he would rather sign for, I think he would say Arsenal.
I think he would as well, but I'm just not convinced we're going to drop that kind of money on a player who has that kind of baggage. Because, like I said, if they discover in a year's time that he's been not back on the source, but it's a very high risk. It's very, very high risk. So we'll have to see on that one. It
depends on the risk versus reward, though, doesn't it? Because you need to look at what he would give you on the pitch.
On the pitch, it's like a no-brainer to me. It's not about his, but it's hard to weigh the on the pitch genius, versus the off the pitch potential hazard that's there.
Yeah, but as a club,
I don't know as a club how you can minimize that risk of the off pitch stuff with this
kind of.
I was
about to say, as a club, are there not things you can put in place?
How can you stop someone from gambling?
Well, it's an illness, isn't it? So you get them the help that they need. I mean, I don't know what Brentford are doing, but I'm sure we're doing something. I don't know, but I'm sure we're doing something. There must be some sort of psychology.
In that Bartlett interview, he did not come across as someone that.
Yeah, that Bartlett interview.
I sitting down with a therapist.
The only thing I would say about that is the interview itself did happen pretty much the week he got banned, or the week after, or something, right? So there's been a lot of water under the bridge since then. So I'm just wondering where he is now compared to where he was at that time.
But the thing is that's the thing. Do you take the risk or not? And if it was my 80 million, because Arsenal can't afford to have
Arsenal can talk to Brentford though, right? So Arsenal's representatives can talk to Brentford and say, like, what have you been doing with him? How is he?
They can. But like I said, there's now a risk there that just wasn't there before. And for someone like Chelsea could sign him, or City could sign him for 80, 90 million. And if it doesn't work out, it's not really going to affect them that much because of how those clubs are run. Right. Whereas for someone like Arsenal, we spend what we earn and not really much more than that. And so an 80 million transfer that goes tits up is really bad, which we had with Pepe.
Oh, I totally get it. Yeah,
and potentially with Kai Havertz as well,
So is this anything that you've heard specific, or is this just your view on things?
What, in terms of us going for him?
In terms of the risk.
That's my personal. We've been heavily linked with him. That the risk side of it is just my personal kind of opinion when I look at it. As a fan, you kind of go, yeah, let's get him. Let's just get him in.
Yeah.
But then you kind of go, hold a minute, if I was having to sign off on that, because you imagine you bought him and then the problems happened again, it would be terrible. So, but look, if we bought him, I wouldn't be sat here going, oh, that's a bad move, we shouldn't have done it. My answer is I don't know, because none of us know, like you said, what's been going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We
I can't believe, knowing as I do how Brentford is run as a club, I don't know for certain, but I'm not a betting kind of person, but I would bet money on the fact that Brentford are doing a lot to help him on a personal level. That we're not the sort of club
kept him, so they definitely should be. I mean, I think it was disgraceful that he wasn't allowed to even train.
Yeah, it's all unbelievable.
I thought that was.
That shows no understanding whatsoever, does it?
I thought it was sick. I thought it was quite sick of the FA to do that. Sick in a bad way, not sick in a good way.
Yeah.
It just means
not
two
wicked.
things. I thought that was terrible. I thought, why would you do that?
Yeah.
What are you?
How does that help anybody?
It doesn't. It doesn't help anybody, and
it doesn't help Ivan. It doesn't help Brentford.
More of a deterrent. And I believe Tonali is able to train with Newcastle. I don't think he's been banished from the training ground, although I don't know actually 100% on that. So, but it is a serious thing, though, and it is clearly something that players know they shouldn't be doing. And again, in that Bartlett interview, it didn't really. I mean, it was a while ago now, but I remember watching it, and he seemed to kind of suggest that I think he didn't really realise that he shouldn't be kind of doing it, or maybe didn't.
I mean, we all saw it and we all cringed. Yeah.
I mean, that's I don't know. It's everyone knows you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah,
it's really bad.
Yeah,
and there's lots of, because I believe you can bet on other things. You could bet on the boxing, or the racing, or whatever it is. But there you go. But obviously we've got a relationship already because we've done the Raya deal. I mean, the Raya deal is a loan.
Yeah, well, it kind of is a loan. It's a loan, but you're obliged to buy him.
Oh, I didn't think we were. I didn't think we were.
Yeah.
I thought that's why he signed a new contract, though, because
Raya's an Arsenal player.
Okay.
The only reason we've done it the way we've done it is if you put it this way, Brentford are kind of doing Arsenal a bit of a favour because it means you don't have to pay out all the money in one go.
So there's FFP stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So you asked me something off in the green room before we went live. We're not live actually, so before we started recording about Raya, and you said you had this thing about, do certain clubs look kind of down on lower?
Yeah, what I was saying was, as a Brentford fan, I mean, it may well be the same for Premier League teams. I don't know, but as a lower league supporter, and I'm the sort of supporter that goes home and away, so I'll go to double-digit away games in a season, as well as I've got a season ticket to all of the home games. And you do basically, you go to the pubs and you do talk to opposition fans. And the point I was getting at earlier is that I spoke to some fans from Brighton, Bournemouth, maybe even Leeds. But anyway, people that have been in the Premier League but are seen as smaller clubs. And they were saying about, if this is before Brentford got promoted, if Brentford do get promoted, one thing that isn't such a good thing about being in the Premier League is that there's a lot of snobbery. And you kind of see that on Match of the Day as well, because obviously the smaller clubs are always played last. And if a small club ever beats a big club, it's always because the big club didn't play well rather than the small club did play well, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So my point about Raya was, I wondered what the Arsenal supporters felt about him as a player, and whether the fact that he's come from Brentford is clouding their judgment because they see him as a small club player.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So the answer to that, I think, would be no. I don't think we look at him. I certainly haven't, and I haven't seen many Arsenal fans going, "We've bought this player from Brentford. Like, he's really not going to potentially be up for it." And one of the reasons being is Arsenal bought recently. We bought players from smaller clubs, and the players have been great. For example, Ben White from Brighton, Trossard from Brighton. Both of those have been incredible. Declan Rice from West Ham.
Mm.
He's been incredible. And, you know, a lot of Arsenal fans want us to buy Ivan Toney.
Right.
He's playing for Brentford. So the status of the club, it doesn't really come into it. It may come into it slightly when you start talking about Champions League, maybe.
Right.
When you're looking at a player and especially the position of a goalie, and going, okay, not only has he not got Champions League experience, but he hasn't got experience at the top level in the Premier League. So you're kind of having to do two jump steps in levels, essentially. One, okay, title fighting, top 4 fighting team, and then Champions League. And I think one of the issues that's happened is that he's come in and he's not looked amazing. The difference between him and Ramsdale is not necessarily. I think there is a difference, and I would pick David Raya over Aaron Ramsdale. But the difference isn't that big.
Mm.
It's not straight. It's not particularly straightforward. And I think when he first came in, his first few games, he had some dicey moments. And he rode them out well. But a lot of people have amnesia, you know, and with Aaron Ramsdale, he's quite a likable guy. He's English as well. And so people just really didn't like the fact that this guy that just signed a new contract, he settled down, he had a baby, did okay for Arsenal. I don't think he's been great for Arsenal, to be honest with you. Like some of the crap people come out with, they're saying, oh, Ramsdale has done nothing wrong. You go on YouTube, right? And just look up a Ramsdale compilation from last season. And he was not the reason we lost the league, but he was a big part of the reason why we cocked it up, because of mental lapses.
Right.
So with David Raya, for example, you look at him and he's very good poker face. He doesn't look flustered. He doesn't look panicked. He's not interacting with the crowd. He's just taking care of business. And Ramsdale's like the complete opposite of that. So no, I think it's really just down to the performances. He's not had that really incredible moment yet.
He's made a couple of really good saves, I've noticed.
He's made a couple of good saves. He's had a couple of.
He's not very. The thing is with Raya that we would notice as Brentford fans, he comes too far out of goal, so he'll come too far out for a cross. And sometimes he'll stand too far from his goal when the opposition have got a free kick.
Well, I think a lot of that though is the manager. I think with Raya, some of the passing actually trying to do out
basically a centre back.
Yeah, but I think the manager, Arsenal anyway, is telling him to play that way, and it's a very high risk way of playing.
Yeah,
and in fact, I think Arteta came out after the City game because there was nearly a couple of mistakes that nearly led to goals, and he was like, I'm telling him to do it, and I say to him, keep doing it. If it goes wrong, you've got to keep doing it because that's how we play.
Yeah, when he first come from Blackburn to Brentford, he did make quite a few howlers. He was at fault for quite a few goals, but for us, he just grew in confidence, grew and grew. And once his confidence was there, he was a fantastic keeper. And I think the same thing will happen for you. I think once his confidence grows, I think you'll love him.
Well, hopefully.
With all at his feet, he's fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on Ramsdale for the weekend because, you know, he played in our last.
He'll get a lot of grief, by the way, Ramsdale.
Sorry,
from the Brentford supporters, he'll get a lot.
Oh yeah. But he doesn't mind that, to be honest.
Well, okay.
But he will if he cocks it up on Saturday. He's in trouble, and he's come out with some really weird comments recently. Ramsdale doing like podcasts and things. He's talked about how he can't concentrate for 90 minutes on a match, and that's why he gets involved with the crowd and things to kind of G himself up a bit and stay interested in what's going on. And it's like, you know, we don't need to be hearing that as fans.
Yeah, keep that to yourself, maybe. Yeah.
This is not helping. So, talking about the game, let's get this up on here. So you've obviously you're a season ticket holder. In terms of Brentford's start to the season, what would you give it out of 10? Could you give it a rating out of 10 so far?
It's difficult because last season was pretty much a 10 out of 10.
Right, at this stage?
No, just overall.
Okay,
so
right.
overall last season was just tremendous. I mean, we finished 10th. We're talking about Brentford, right?
Yeah.
Like I was saying to you earlier, if you go back to 2007, we're nearly going out of business. And look at us. We've done a double over Man City last season. So it's hard to give a score this season because last season was so good. But the thing is, we've been playing very well. So I think from Brentford's perspective, they always look at how you're playing. We've had a couple of blips, but by and large, the way we've been playing has been good. And Bumo has stepped up to the plate to take over from basically where Toney left off. So he's been fantastic. Wissa up front as well. He's a sort of player that if you go one-on-one with a goalkeeper, usually you sort of hold your breath and wonder if it's going to hit the top of the stand. Well, with Wissa, you can just, he's going to score.
Okay.
Right, he's fantastic. But so far this season, we've had too many draws. So games that we've played well in, we should really have won. Forest away springs to mind, where we had a stonewall penalty where Wissa was literally kicked in the leg. They didn't even VAR it. It was crazy. And that was the same weekend as the famous Liverpool one, where Liverpool scored. It was the same weekend. That was on the Saturday and ours was on the Sunday. So VAR was really in the news that weekend. So I guess if you want to give a score out of 10, maybe 6 or 7 out of 10. So we're playing well. We just haven't quite got the wins that we feel like our performances have deserved.
To put some context into that, though, you've not had your two probably best players from last year.
Well, yes, yeah, absolutely. Tony, absolutely, yeah.
So,
but like I said to you earlier, Flecken's come in and been fantastic.
Okay.
We signed Collins. Collins has got a bit of flack from the fans, which I think is undeserved, because he's just brilliant with the ball at his feet. He's just really, really composed, and he can pick passes from deep. And again, you just have to give these players a bit of time to settle in. And Collins was settling in against West Ham. He was fantastic. He got the winning goal, and unfortunately, he got injured whilst playing for Ireland in the week. So we're not sure how long he's going to be out for. But yeah, I'd say 6 or 7 out of 10.
What do you make of? Because you actually signed a player who Arsenal were really linked heavily with, Aaron Hickey.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, as your left back, is that right?
He's been playing right back for us, but once Rico Henry got injured, he's now playing left back. He played left back for Bologna, who we signed him for.
Right, okay.
So he can play either side, but he's now playing left back for us. Yeah.
What have you made of him since he's been at the?
He's fantastic. Yeah, he's fantastic. Right. Yeah, young, raw. So he's got a mistake in him, but he's 19 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
So raw, but very, very good. Very, very good go, especially going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, he was linked.
Very, very good.
Yeah, he was linked very heavily with Arsenal, and then
he's a fantastic player.
I don't know if it was. It must have been after we bought Tomiyasu from Bologna as well. Then, but I always keep an eye on him just because we nearly bought him. And typically with Arsenal, when they nearly go for someone, they'll then go back in for them later at a later stage. Like I we've been in for Raya maybe a few seasons earlier as well, and just couldn't come to a deal or something on it. And
you think Arsenal come in for Raya before?
Yeah, that's what I'd heard, because I think we've got some ex-Brentford goalkeeping coaches at the club.
Yes, that's true. Yeah,
and they had kind of recommended him.
I forget his name, but yeah, Spanish guy.
Yeah, and recommended him. And so I believe actually when we got Ramsdale, we actually wanted to get Raya. Raya was actually the first choice, but for whatever reason, we couldn't get the deal done.
Right.
And then we signed Ramsdale, and I think that's why
he might come back in for Hickey.
Maybe.
Maybe. I think. Well, if he's not now, I think he will be. I know Man United have looked at him.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at that because of Luke Shaw's injury records.
Although Man United are a little bit of a basket case. Did you see the Rio Ferdinand interview when they were talking about Bellingham? In the week.
No, I'm not seeing it.
So Jude Bellingham, it must have been when he was. I can't remember whether it was. It must have been when he was due to leave Dortmund. Was going to sign for United. I believe he's a United fan, Bellingham. And Bellingham said obviously they were negotiating the fee and the wages and all that.
But he was going to leave Dortmund, not Birmingham.
So. But Dortmund.
Okay.
Yeah, He went to Dortmund, right, from Birmingham.
Yeah, he went from Birmingham to Dortmund. So United
Yeah.
were looking to sign him from Dortmund.
I believe so. Yeah, it's either that or from Birmingham, one or the other. But anyway, the point is this: Rio said that Bellingham stipulated that he wanted guaranteed first team football, and Man United said no. No, it must have been from Dortmund, because Rio was saying Man United said no. So then he signed for Real Madrid, and now he's tearing up the Bernabeu.
That doesn't add up to me. I don't trust it. I don't trust much of what Rio says, because I remember Rio putting out tweets about, oh yeah, the deal to United being owned by the Sheikh is done. It's going to be happening in the next few days, and it didn't happen. And it doesn't. A player, Man United would, in some ways, United would be correct to say no one has a right to start. Look, we're not spending 90 million euros on you to chuck you in the stands.
Yeah.
But we're not. That's such a really weird. I mean, look, he was never going to go to United anyway. Look at how they run and look at what's going on.
Well, this is an important point. So Jim Ratcliffe is going to buy 25% of Man United. He's the Team Ineos guy.
Yeah.
And so it's been reported that he's going to employ, or has employed, David Raya, the GB cycling guy. Yeah, and what he's tasked with doing is basically evaluating the United staff, not just the players, but the behind-the-scenes staff, looking for strengths and weaknesses, of which I'm sure he's going to find many. So the point of me mentioning the Bellingham thing is just that in the week, this news has come out about Brailsford going to Man United. And I just wonder if he's going to shake things up and get rid of some dead wood. Because if there's any truth to that Bellingham thing, I mean, Man United, as we all know, are struggling. If any truth to that, then that's gonna be one of the reasons why. If the backroom staff aren't up to the job.
Yeah, I mean, so many good players have gone to United and are just kind of drowning, really. And it is, United, and I spoke with it on the last video I did with Dow, that they've got so many problems. It's hard to know where to start, which is what this Brailsford guy is going to do, I suppose. Really, they need to do a root and branch, kind of review of what's happening, because they're getting left behind. They do. I say left behind. They're not actually in that bad a position in the league, because they've got some very good. They just find a way, don't they? United just find a way.
Well, they found a way against Brentford. Did you see
that?
Yeah,
I didn't want to bring it
up. I was at the game. Oh my god!
I was watching it, and on telly, and it was a bit of a.
It was horrible, mate. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So obviously the game's on Saturday evening.
Yep.
In terms of putting our what's-its on the lines, do you have a prediction? A prediction for the game? I've got two in my head. I've got two kind of ways I see it.
I mean, last season Arsenal were the best team at Brentford, the best team that I saw in the flesh. You beat us 3-0, and you played us off the park.
Was that like an early kickoff on a Sunday or something? Was it?
I can't remember.
I remember watching it. on.
I was at the game, and I mean, Arsenal were just brilliant. Now we've lost Collins. We've had 3 wins in a row, but then we were not good against Liverpool. We played Liverpool away 2 Sundays ago, and so now we've lost Collins as well. I think Arsenal are going to be too strong for us, so I'm going to go again in my 2 or 3-0.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah,
I'm more optimistic for Brentford than you are.
Yeah, no, I can't see it.
I was either thinking at 2-1 Arsenal or maybe a Desmond,
right?
Because Arsenal have a lot of players coming back from international break, from very far flung sort of the earth as well. So we've got all our Brazilians. We've got like 3 Brazilians who are flying back now from Argentina or wherever it was.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was some sort of battle in the stands there.
Yeah,
as well.
that didn't look like it went great either. And Jesus is just back from injury. Odegaard hasn't played for several weeks now. Apparently he might be back, but I don't know if he's going to chuck him back in. Fabio Vieira, who I think may have scored against Brentford last season, possibly, is suspended. Kai Havertz is just, pretty pedestrian in terms of goal scoring or whatever. So I actually think it's a really good opportunity for Brentford. It's in the evening under the lights, get the crowd going.
It'll be a good atmosphere, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, hey, look, I hope you're right, and I hope it is a 2. I mean, obviously, we played you earlier in the Carabao Cup or whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
And I think, was that 1-0 or 2-0? I can't remember what that was.
2-0, yeah.
2-0. 2-0. Right. Okay. So you're going for maybe a 2-0 or 3-0 loss, and I'm going
3-0 loss. I'm going for, yeah. I hope I'm wrong, obviously, but with the injuries we've got, and what did it for? I think the Arsenal, mind you, we have had good reactions from bad games, so we might get a reaction because our performance against Liverpool was just really quite poor.
Right. Okay.
That was our last game, right?
Right.
So I guess there could be 2 ways of looking at it. If we get a reaction, then maybe we'll be all right.
Okay.
But it's the injuries that worry me because we've now got 8 players out. 8 players that could realistically.
Like Brentford, that's a lot. That is a lot of players to have out.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, Arsenal we haven't really got our 3rd gear yet this season, and a lot of our games have been very fine marginally. Like, there's been 1 goal in it. And
mind you, actually thinking about it, I did see you played. I saw some of the Sheffield United game.
Right.
You
Yeah.
played Sheffield United at home, and you didn't look great. That game, yeah. Good point. Yeah. What happened, in your opinion, to Arsenal then? Why is the form dipped?
Several reasons, really. It's the form dipping. It's the performance as necessarily as opposed to the form, because we've only lost 1 game.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That was a horrific VAR decision against Newcastle away. So.
Oh yeah.
But we're not creating as many chances. So there's a few things. There's we've got rid of Granit Xhaka. Kai Havertz hasn't banged yet, and doesn't look like he's going to bang anytime soon, to be honest, from what I've seen. Gabby Jesus has been injured most of the season so far, and we've never really been able to field our best 11 consistently. I mean, I think there's only been 1 game where we've played Jesus, Martinelli, and Saka up front.
Right.
We've not been able to do it, and so we've had to have players like Thomas Partey's been injured as well.
Yeah,
he's been out for 8.
Yeah, he's one of those players you spent a lot of money on, and he's not really delivered.
50 million. We spent 50. But when he's fit, he's incredible, but he's just never fit. He's just always injured. We should have got rid of him in the summer. We should have overhauled the midfield. We should have got rid of Partey and got rid of Partey and Xhaka. But I would have liked to have kept Xhaka, but I think he wanted to go. So, and if a player wants to go, it's tough, isn't it, to kind of keep him around? Yeah. It's really the lack of. We had Jurriën Timber, who was one of our star signings as well. And he did his ACL in his first game in the Premier League after like 20 minutes.
Right.
So just so many things kind of going against us, and we haven't got into that rhythm. But we've still been picking up points though, and we beat Man City without Saka or Martinelli starting. Saka wasn't in the squad. Martinelli was on the bench. So okay. All right, or Thomas Partey either. So, but yeah, I think once the team kind of settles down, the style of play has changed as well. If we can get Havertz integrated, then it will start happening. Start happening for us. So, fingers crossed for Arsenal, anyway.
Yeah. One player to look out for from our perspective, we've got a young Ukrainian lad called Yarmolenko. He's only 18. We'd signed him for our B team, but he's been promoted into the A team this season. He's come off the bench for the past sort of 3 or 4 games and looked really, really good.
Was he a winner?
Central midfield, sort of attacking midfield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He came off the bench last Sunday against Liverpool, and he was pretty much the highlight of our afternoon, really. So that's somebody to look out for from us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll get a start. I don't know. The injuries,
possibly, with the injuries that we've got, possibly, yeah.
Maybe he'll chuck him in. So we'll find out on Saturday evening. So just a couple of other things. We've nearly done an hour. It's gone quick, hasn't it? Couple of things just to run through before we wrap up. So one thing that did kind of keep me entertained during international break was I've spelt that wrong. Relegated. That's
relegated. Yeah.
Say relegated, but Everton, Man City, and Chelsea are in a whole load of doo-doo at the moment. Everton, especially with the 10-point deduction. I did hear earlier today that apparently one of the panel that gave them the 10-point deduction used to be like a finance chief officer at West Ham United.
Okay.
And was actually working for West Ham United when they had the whole Carlos Tevez signing points deduction kind of thing that went on. I don't know if you remember that from when Tevez was at
West Ham. No, I do remember that. Yeah.
There.
Tevez and the other guy, the Mascherano.
Yeah. So, one of the things I've been looking at Chelsea fans' reactions, and it's quite terrible actually. They're all kind of saying, "Hey, we still love Roman," and you know what? If you told us 20 years ago that Roman's going to do all this, but then we're going to get caught and we might get relegated or whatever, or get a points deduction, it would have been worth it. And they don't seem to think it tarnishes anything.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah,
and I just think
I think it does tarnish it.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I think it does. Yeah.
Because
the only thing I say about Chelsea is they've got no charges against them at the moment.
Whether they're cooperating with the Premier League.
Yeah, because they had that season where they were banned from transfers, didn't they?
Yeah, they had that.
And then they had a sort of £10 million fine or something that they had to pay for something to do with their signing under 18s.
Yeah, well, they're in a process with the Premier League at the moment. And I believe that Chelsea are the ones that put their hand up, where they've obviously taken, the new owners have come in, they've taken over and gone, hold on a minute, we're seeing these payments and things, and this doesn't look right. And they've gone, hey, look. And so the Premier League are working with them on it. Obviously, Everton have got this 10-point deduction, and it looks harsh to me. And so people are looking at that and going, well, what's going to happen to Man City? What's going to happen to Chelsea, who have got what look like much more severe... I mean, what Chelsea and Man City have been kind of accused of or potentially done is, you're hiding things. You're moving payments to places where they shouldn't be, or receiving money from places you shouldn't.
But the difference, I guess, between Chelsea and Man City is that Man City have actually been charged with 115 charges.
Correct. Man City have been charged, and I think a lot of it is like the same charge multiple times.
Well, but even if you take that into account, it's still over 100.
Yeah, it's not great, and City are in a we're going to obfuscate, we're going to delay, put mud in the water, not cooperate, just try and drag it out as long as they can, and they're just pathetic. The things they're complaining about, but people are looking at it going, well, if that's happened to Everton, what's going to happen to City and Chelsea? And
well, one interesting way that somebody I was talking to looked at it was that Everton have had 10 points deducted, and they're guilty of about maybe £15 million.
Yeah, 15, 20,
overspending, right? So you're looking at about £1.5 million per point. If you then use that logic against Man City, they would have over 1,000 points deducted.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that, though, does it?
It just gives you some indication of the discrepancy between what Everton have done and what Man City have done.
The Man City one is, personally, I don't think anything's going to happen. And I think with the Man City one, it goes to another level where, I mean, I think the Foreign Office have even confirmed that they'd spoken with Abu Dhabi about the charges that have been brought against them and things. It's going to turn political. And I don't know, you've got one state that's looking to buy 20 billion worth of planes from, or RAF jets from us or something like that. And it's like, look, if something happens here, we're not going to be able to do that deal. Okay, all right, then we'll see if we can smooth it out. It's going to go down like that.
There's a lot of sort of diplomatic things going on.
Of course,
right?
Of course, and obviously with the likes of Everton,
but then
that's not going to happen.
But then, why would the FA punish Everton so severely? Because surely all they're doing there is making a rod for their own back.
Well, I've heard one of the reasons why is that the government are looking to put an independent regulator on the FA, on the Premier League.
Right.
And they don't want that. They want to be able to regulate themselves. So they want to be seen to be taking care of business correctly. And that is why
Man City, we all know that isn't true.
Well, I think the FA would want to punish Man City. However, the government may pull some funny stuff and kind of stop that from happening. But I suppose for me, it was like, you know, regardless of what the punishments are, do you strip titles? Do you drop points? Do you do both?
We need to know what the charges are, don't we? I think that matters. Doesn't it? I think we need to know what they've been actually accused of.
I know City have been accused. Well, so Chelsea have been accused of making payments directly to agents and I think that happened with Eden Hazard's agent when he moved from France to Chelsea. So, for example, Arsenal were in for him, and then Roman slipped the agent a few million to get signed for Chelsea instead.
Right,
and they're not supposed to really be doing that, and have that accounted for as well. You've got Man City accused of paying players or former managers twice in some instances, and inflated sponsorship deals. So it's murky areas. But then you've got clubs that are doing everything by the book. And so will they look to even sue the likes of Chelsea and City for lost income on Champions League qualifications and things like that? I mean, it could be a really bad bottomless pit. I mean, apparently there are clubs looking to start a case against Everton. I
heard about. I was about to mention that to you. Yeah. So who are the clubs again? The ones
one of them is Sheffield United. Well, whoever got relegated last season, really.
Oh, was it last season? Right. Okay.
So
who that was then? Who went down last season? Mine's gone blank.
I can't remember who that was, but one of them was definitely Leicester.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Southampton.
Yeah.
Southampton.
And they're looking to sue them for about £100 million each. Because that's how much it costs to get relegated.
Yeah, we'll see. And then then someone like Everton, that could put them out of business.
Yeah.
It really could. So
I mean, I think Everton will stay up, even with a 10-point deduction. I think they've got enough about them to stay up.
Yeah. I don't know if on their appeal there's any danger that it could be increased.
Yeah.
Because I looked at that 10 points.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But if there's ever a season where you're going to probably be able to get away with it, this is the season.
Right.
So maybe take it on the chin, but they're not doing that at all. They're going to fight. They're going to fight the fight, and that's that's their prerogative to do that, I suppose.
Yeah.
But they've got Man United at the weekend.
Right.
So I've seen loads of United fans going, "Oh no, this is so unfair." They're going to be so up for it, aren't they?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Sean Dyche is going to be in there. Brexit.
Oh, he's got all the motivation he needs right there. Right?
There's going to be red cards in that game.
Yeah, without doubt. Yeah,
there's definitely going to be red cards.
What happened? Just getting back to Arsenal for a sec. What happened to Nelson? Your player Nelson. Yeah.
Well, nothing's happened to him. He's still at the club. He signed a new deal, so his contract expired in the summer.
Yeah.
And we signed him up to a new deal. Really, I suppose, as like the Saka backup. Although he's the guy that scored against us in the cup game. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I think it was. I think I said 2-0. I think it was. I think it was just 1-0. I think that
was it
was it.
1-0 then?
Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah, Nelson did score. Yeah. So he's been okay. He's kind of like a rotation player. Most Arsenal fans are kind of like, well, we should cash in on him.
Right. Okay.
A lot of us don't feel he's necessarily at the level. He has improved a lot in the last 18 months.
Right.
You can see that he's changed his focus and he understands that he's kind of matured a bit as a person.
Right.
But this is the problem. A club like Arsenal, the level's so high that it is difficult. And we've had certain players like Fabio Vieira, for example, is quite a good example where he's come in. He was like 35 million. And when he joined, suddenly we were in a title race. And no one was expecting us to be in a title race last year. Arsenal fans, no one was kind of predicting that. And when an 11 is at that level, it's really hard to break into it.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think maybe we've bought players thinking, oh, okay, we're going to be in like a top 4 European race. This will give them a couple of seasons to bed down, and then they'll be able to crack on. But actually, the team's kind of progressing quicker than maybe the coaches expect.
Can't really give them the time they need. You mean?
Yeah,
right.
and maybe from our transfer targets as well, it's kind of skewed things a bit. So he's another one where you kind of look at it and go, oh, he's not at the level.
Right.
And Reece Nelson ultimately is, but Reece Nelson might be happy with that. He might look at it and go, okay, I would rather play 10, 15 games a season for Arsenal than go and join, whoever it is and get like 30 games a season.
Right.
He might, maybe that's how he kind of looks at things.
Right. I don't know. I mean, yeah, that'd be a weird way of looking at it, I think, unless he's an Arsenal fan.
I think he is. I mean, he's been there since, he's come through the youth system and everything.
Right.
But eventually you're going to want to have to play a lot of games.
Yeah, of course.
He's obviously backing himself, but he's got Bukayo Saka in front of him or Martinelli.
How old is Saka now?
Sorry?
How old is Saka?
He's like 21.
He's still really young, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still really young.
He come through your academy?
Yeah, he came through the academy. Yeah, he came through the academy.
Oh, he's a tremendous player, isn't he? Yeah.
Oh, he's incredible. His superpower is his decision making.
Right.
He's not particularly quick, and he's not like he's got skills, obviously, but he's not like a Messi. Is going to be taking it around 6 or 7 players or whatever. But he's just very, very good decision making.
Right.
It's hard to teach that, I think. It's
just
hard.
Instinctual, I guess. Yeah.
He's a very high IQ guy, I think.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things with certain players is the ability just to make the right decision at the right time in the right circumstances is really key. Like you look at someone like Phil Foden, for example. Like Foden's been on the scene for so long now. He's been around for a while.
Yeah.
And it hasn't really. He's not the main guy at City.
Yeah.
Hasn't clicked from England level.
Right.
Then Saka came into the England team and straight away just banged.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, he was able to adapt to that environment and make the right decision. I can't say that Saka is a better technical player than Phil Foden. I mean, they're both incredible footballers, aren't they?
Yeah.
Up here, there's obviously something that's different.
Right.
So, yeah. And it was great.
What's your prediction for Arsenal for the season at this stage?
I don't think we'll win it. I think City will win it.
Right.
Do you know what though? Liverpool are hanging around like a bad smell.
Right.
So I wouldn't write them out of it either. So I think we'll probably finish second, maybe third.
Right.
I think we need a bit more. You chuck an Ivan Toney in there at Christmas, I might change my mind.
Yeah.
But I think we're lacking in midfield. Thomas Partey's out. Jorginho's playing a lot of games, and we're one injury away from Mohamed El Neni starting all our games for us. And it's like he's got a nice guy, but he's not going to win us a league.
Right.
So unless we unless we sign a midfielder and a top striker, I just don't think we've got that.
So do you not think you have enough in depth?
Not in those positions, no.
Right. Okay.
Not in those, because we've got injury prone. Gabby Jesus is always injured, and Thomas Partey.
Which is a shame, because on his day he's brilliant, isn't he? I mean, last season when he was on fire at the start of the season, Arsenal looked like they were going to run away with it.
Yeah, he was unplayable. But then he has these dips. He went like 9 games without scoring.
Right.
And like people are going, yeah, but look at the build-up play. Look at what else he brings into it. It's like, okay, but he's our striker.
Yeah,
very well and good, but he needs to be banging them in.
Well, that's why Toney's so good, is that he does score, but he gets involved in the game so much. He drops deep. He's so involved in everything. That's what he brings to the party.
Yeah. So, I mean, Arsenal have looked at some taller players a couple of seasons ago. We were looking at Vlahovic, who went to Juventus, who's a similar kind of physical profile to an Ivan Toney, probably bigger actually. But yeah, I'm not convinced we're going to go for him. Partly as well because it's like the straightforward, obvious thing to do.
Right.
You know, how often do you see a football club in a situation? You go, why don't they just go and like Man United? It's like, why haven't they bought Harry Kane yet? Why haven't they bought Harry Kane or Bale when, you know, or whoever it was? And they just never did. They never did the deals or couldn't get them over the line like they used to do when they had Fergie.
Yeah. Well, it was David Gill, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, David Gill. And so I look at Arsenal and go, well, that's like a really obvious thing that we should do, is we should probably actually go and get Ivan Toney. But it's so obvious, we're just probably not going to do it. We're going to try and like come up with some really weird solution.
Right.
And you know, we spent 65 on Kai Havertz, like a 6'4".
Yeah, I mean, you've already said it, but I didn't rate him very much when he was at Chelsea.
Exactly. Well, that's what I said when we bought him. I just said, look, no one has watched Arsenal play Chelsea the last few years and gone, do you know what we need? We need
exactly. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
You know, and like you
go, nobody's saying that, are they? Nobody's watching that and going, we need him in our team.
Exactly. I mean, you may say that about, you know, Reece James or, I don't know, a couple of other players over the last few seasons, maybe, but not him. But yeah, I think Chelsea have done us on that one. But it's still early. We'll see. I'll give him a season. I'll give him a season. See what happens.
And where do you? I mean, I know they're your great rivals, but where do you rate Tottenham's chances? Or are they just going to do a Tottenham?
They're going to do it. They already are doing a Tottenham.
They did. I mean, losing at home 4-1 to Chelsea is absolutely hilarious.
I watched that game and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I really couldn't believe what I was seeing. I think Tottenham. They will find their level, and I think we're going to. The level that isn't at the top, and I think their first 11 is a good 11. When they played us at the Emirates, they deserved to win. We were lucky to get away.
Well, Maddison's made a massive difference, obviously, and they brought Brennan Johnson, who's very, very good.
Yeah, but
he'll take a little bit of time.
Johnson. He's injury prone, knows Maddison as well, though.
Yeah, he's out at the moment, isn't he? Yeah,
he's out and out till New Year. That Van der Weyden looks good, but he proper did his hamstring, and then he's going to come back. But how confident is he going to be in his hamstring once he's back? Romero's a head case. He's banned for 3 games. So I think you'll find out more about Tottenham now that they're in that terrible run, that terrible situation where, you know, they lost to Chelsea, they lost to Wolves. Players are injured, players are suspended. Can they come together and make something happen? And they've only got 1 game a week as well. It's not like they've got European football here. They should be doing well. They should be doing well. But I think they'll challenge for top 4, top 5.
Right.
So, but in terms of the title, I just don't see it at all.
No, really. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
And
talking about Harry Kane having left them, I mean, how good is he doing at Bayern? I mean, they love him, don't they? Absolutely.
He's just smashing him. He's just smashing them in left, right, and centre. He just can't stop scoring.
It's great for England. I mean, I know we've got problems with Southgate, but to have Kane playing in a different league, Bellingham playing in a different league, I think it's great for the national side.
It is, but you got Southgate, you know.
Yeah, well, quite.
So,
coaching the shit out of them. Yeah.
You just got to hope there's just so much the pure natural talent the players.
Honestly, mate. Honestly, I reckon if
Right.
they went out there and played on their own with no manager, they would do better than they do with Southgate.
Well, Chelsea have done that before a few times, haven't they? Where the players have just, like, Roman sacked someone, they've brought some puppet in, and then Lampard, John Terry, and Drogba have just gone, all right, lads.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to run this show now.
Well, there's a lot to be said for that, by the way, because the players know what they're doing because they're the ones doing it. Right? So, yeah.
Yeah, so you think maybe, you've got John Stones, Harry Kane, Bellingham and Declan Rice kind of having a chat going, all right, lads.
Yeah.
I know the manager said this.
Behind his back. Right, Gareth's out of the room. Let's just sort this out between us. Yeah.
Learn how to manage your manager. That's what they say.
Yeah.
On that.
Well, John Stones actually moving into midfield is a really big move, isn't it?
It made such a difference for City last year.
Yeah, fantastic.
And they're missing, because I think he's injured at the moment, so they are missing him.
Yeah,
because there's not many profiles of players that can do that.
Can't see Southgate doing that, risking that, playing him in that position for England, can you?
Not if you've got Maguire there. You can't have Stones jumping into midfield if you've then got Maguire at the back.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to work.
Mm.
It's going to be too risky. But who knows what goes through? Mind. No, absolutely. Look, I've got to wrap it up now.
Okay, mate.
The dog is probably barking for me, and there's all sorts of things to crack on. But we've done nearly an hour and 15 minutes. So
happy days, yeah.
The longest one yet. So that's good. And
very good.
I really enjoyed it. I've had great fun. I'd love to do.
Hopefully I put Brentford's case, or not case, but history over in a digestible way.
I'm sure you have. So thanks for coming on. I'd love you to come on again. Anytime you want to just come on, and we can talk about anything, anything to do, or we can just do that. And maybe even in the summer with the Euros, maybe we do some England games or something.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that, mate. No problem. Anytime. Yeah.
Let me know. Thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed, please comment, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.